Welcome, Queen. At some point, being misunderstood isn't accidental. And often we may not want to hear this, but every breakdown in communication also is not due to a lack of clarity. There comes a point that it's simply about responsibility. Not blame, not fault, just simply taking responsibility. Because if the same conversations keep ending the exact same way, then there's something being tolerated, avoided, or left undecided. And today, I want to equip you to see what dynamic of the conversation and the communication you actually have the power to control. That way, as you communicate, you don't shrink, but you also do not over explain. So here's what I need you to know. You can be emotionally intelligent and still avoid taking responsibility. Because avoidance does not always look passive. Sometimes it looks like saying, I'm going to be the bigger person here. And that can be from operating from a place of misunderstanding and using that misunderstanding as a shield. Because there are some times when we say, I'm going to be the bigger person, that we are simply choosing to not engage and get to and resolve the root of the issue that is impacting us or that relationship that we desire to mend. So please recognize if the same pattern, the same issue keeps repeating itself, it keeps showing up over and over again, then clarity is not the missing piece. But the key in recognizing that clarity isn't the missing piece is recognizing the three core distinct components of conversations that show up, especially when there is conflict. And while these aren't the only three, they are the most common three. So, the first one is our communication skills. The second one is responsibility. And the third one is avoidance. So when it comes to our communication skills, that simply means the way in which we communicate, how well we articulate our thoughts, our ideas, our belief systems to the person or people we may be speaking to or with on a particular topic or issue. Then there is responsibility. Responsibility boils down to what you are willing to own, whether that be good, bad, or indifferent. And avoidance, meaning that you are hoping, wishing, or praying that the other person or other people who you are communicating with make changes for the better so that you don't have to make a bold decision. So I want you to consider this. Somebody making a comment that was out of line and you knew it was out of line, but you let it slide. Staying silent when you knew that it was a moment where you needed to speak up and voice your position so that you could be heard and respected for your stance, so that you wouldn't feel belittled or overlooked. Or even finding yourself in a state or space where you were constantly re-explaining something so that you could be understood and received well, instead of simply stating how you felt and what you believe and setting a clear direction with intention. So I have some self-reflection questions for you. Here they are. What are you tolerating because you don't want to lead? And where are you clear but you are not decisive? This isn't about blame. It's about accountability. And we cannot take accountability for something if we're not aware of where we are falling into a trap that is keeping us stuck. Meaning, when I say a trap, I mean a blind spot. And we all have blind spots, as I have shared. A blind spot is simply an area where we don't see us clearly. And oftentimes it means someone else who is objective needs to come alongside us and equip us to see us in that area so we can eliminate that blind spot. And when we take accountability, we take ownership. And when we take ownership, that means we embrace the fact that we have the right to choose. So it puts us in the driver's seat and we operate from a space and a position of power instead of feeling that we are disempowered. And that's why taking responsibility doesn't mean that you have to do more. It means that you choose differently. So your boundaries, your timelines, and the things you choose to disengage in are all decisions you get to make. So when you think about your boundaries, do your boundaries create space for people to disregard you and disrespect you? If so, the boundaries that you have for yourself need to be reevaluated so that they can be aligned to honor you and your expectations. And when you think about your timetable, what shows up as you communicate as it relates to your time? Do the people you communicate with and have conversations with understand what is important and valuable to you as it relates to how you spend your time? Disengaging. When do you decide that disengaging is appropriate? Because here's the thing. Sometimes we can feel guilty about disengaging. And then there are other times where we disengage prematurely because it's uncomfortable to resolve the issue that is on the table that we see before us. So the bottom line here is that I want you to see that responsibility shows up in a number of varying ways. And when we are truly responsible, we recognize that we have a responsibility to communicate what others need to hear, even if it's tough for them to hear. Because responsibility is about you deciding that you will not live a life where you rehearse conversations in your head. Because a conversation trapped in your head only leads to you being trapped in your head. I'm going to say it again. A conversation rehearsed in your head only leads to you being trapped in your head. And the whole point of communicating is letting others know where you stand on the specific issue or instance at hand. And they can't do that if you're not communicating what is most important and most valuable for you, from you, so that they can know it. So I want you to understand that as you take responsibility, you can only be responsible for you, for the things that you do and in the ways in which you show up. Because people are going to have a reaction regardless of what you say, whether you speak up or whether you even stay quiet. And while all of you watching me may not believe how I believe, which is fine, I want you to know that as a believer in Christ, Christ lived a perfect life. And still, there were people who had issues with him. So much so that he ended up being crucified. So if a person who lived a perfect life can come against people or face people who had issues with him, and we are not perfect, then it's unrealistic for us as imperfect humans to expect everyone to agree with our stance, our position, our perspective. They are not going to, and that's okay. Our differences is what makes us uniquely who we are, and it allows us to show up and bring value to places and spaces that would not otherwise be there. So, responsibility is about deciding who you are willing to be, regardless of somebody else's reaction to what you have to say and what you present to them as you choose to communicate with them and to them. And that's why peace comes from you being true to you and not trying to get everyone or force everyone who you communicate with and have conversations with to agree with you. So, as the leader of Me Inc., you have the right to choose to stay in peace and choose to speak your truth and recognize that it's not going to be well received by everyone who hears it. And you don't have to make apologies for it. This is why communication confidence isn't about saying more. You can actually be more impactful even if you decide to make the conscious decision to say less. Confidence communication is about you deciding to own your role without carrying out everyone else's emotions. So it's okay to have empathy for other people's emotions, but you don't have to allow other people's emotions to consume you, especially so much so that it changes or shifts your perspective and your values and your standards. Because at that point, then you are not leading you anymore. Their emotions are causing you to be led. And if their emotions cause you to be led, then you can find yourself leading and living a life that is not your own, which is how some people get stuck into years and years of living a life pleasing others, even though it's causing them to shrink inside. And that's why in the next video, we're going to talk about entitlement, because sometimes conflict isn't due to a misunderstanding. It's due to entitlement because someone is refusing to take responsibility. So I want you to remember that responsibility is not solely yours. It's for us all, because we all get to choose how we do or don't show up through our communications in our conversations. As always, I'm Coach Sam telling you that 24 hours doesn't seem long, but in 24 hours, you can change your life. So go ahead and do something life-changing now.